All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for Red Rain episode 173, first episode of 2025. Please welcome in your host, Walter Mitchell.
Thank you, Kyle Little Rock Ledbetter, sporting a St. Louis Cardinals baseball hat. Won't be long till we have pitchers and catchers in Sacramento. So, yeah, we'll get to baseball on a different day. Today, we're going to talk about the Cardinals, fun win over the 49ers and the questions that were asked post game to the Revenge of the Birds community, our members. We're going to feature their answers and offer some of our own. So, with that, let's go to question number one. And Kyle, our co host, will be reading the questions and I'll be scanning the answers.
All right, let's go through these questions. Number one, Kyler Murray played this weekend like the game had slowed down for him, albeit without having to contend much with Nick Bosa. It's fantastic he threw touchdown passes to Trey McBride, Greg Dortch twice, and Marvin Harrison Jr. So do you see this performance as auspicious for the 2025 season, or does it feel more like a tease to you?
All right. Koala 83. I think yesterday's 49ers were pyrite miners, fool's gold. Any high performance can be dismissed, whether it's Kyler or any other player. However, Kyler has shown when he has consistent protection, he can play. I'm starting to have some doubts, but this team played well against some of the top teams in the NFL this year, and Kyler had some success. I really think if we continue investing in the offensive line, we might see continued improvements from the little guy. Would love to see the team add Ronnie Staley in free agency. Ooh, wow. All right, that's ambitious. What would you do? Move Paris Johnson Jr. over to right tackle? But anyway.
If you could get Ronnie Stanley, a future Hall of Fame left tackle, I think you do it. But that's
Right.
obviously asking a lot, given I assume Baltimore will bring him back.
Yeah, he'll be at least franchise tag. But hey, dreaming is free, and he's a guy that would fit in any lineup.
I said Chris Jones last year, so who knows?
Yeah.
Crazier things have happened.
Yep, you swung for the fences there, Cardinal. Yeah, so then let's see. Next response. ZP714, my newest best friend, said one, personally, no. I need to see meaningful games won. I hope Kyler proves me wrong next year. Same. Red Run said, Murray, he is what he is. I would keep him one more year and build the rest of the team instead of trying a new QB. I would draft a quarterback in the fourth round this year. I assume Toon isn't going to be a starter. All right. Then Ryan Mack, 7. Return of the Mac. Kyler's performance on Sunday was great, but it definitely was a tease. Feels like gaslighting. Kyler plays well enough to remain QB1, but bad enough that we won't make the playoffs. Whenever he feels the fan base is getting too excited, he plays a terrible game or two to keep us in check, to make sure we don't raise our expectations. Kyler is terrible in big games. He plays poorly against great defenses. I'll feel the same way no matter how many meaningless games he wins. Okay. Yeah. Spartan and the Sun. Sark, captain from Michigan. The Michigan State side of the state. 1, tease. It's promising, but I'd really like to see the game slow down for him consistently throughout the season before I say the light has been finally turned on for KM. Horace, no name. This is a tough one. Murray can be amazing, yet Murray can be so frustratingly bad. I want to pull my hair out. Unfortunately, at this point, the only thing Murray has consistently shown is that he is inconsistent. It does not feel like a tease. Um, it honestly feels on brand with some great games, some terrible games. Okay. Yeah. All righty. 2-0. Giangoland. 2-0 says, it was nice to see Kyler have a great performance to close out the season. But I think if there's anything to build on from this season, it's his strong stretch of play from the first half of the year where he cut down on turnovers and played in rhythm. My advice to Kyler for 2025 would be just this. Just stop trying to play hero ball when situation doesn't call for it. When Murray played within the flow of the offense, he was good. It was when he tried to make something out of nothing instead of living to see another down that he got in trouble. Okay. Thank you, 2-0. Arizona Sun. I'm done with Kyler. He's an almost get there underperformer when the stress necessity level is high. He's pretty good when he's not dependent on. The Cardinals will be middle teen drafters, low 20 if it makes a wild card game to lose until he's gone. They'll never have a chance improving better than that, depending on him. Thank you, Arizona Sun. Since 61, my man, Tease, he and his OC have a long way to go, especially in must-win important games. Doug Peterson, QB coach. What would you think about that, Kyle? Doug Peterson as QB coach.
Well, you could do a lot worse. I would say that. I mean, Doug, I don't think Doug has been an offensive coordinator in, gosh, what is it now? Because he took the year off after the Eagles let him go. I don't think Doug's been a coordinator
Well,
in
no, the
8
question is
years.
quarterback coach.
Oh, yeah, I just meant as an assistant coach anywhere. So I don't know. The broader point was I just don't know what Doug's mindset is about going back to be an associate coach or a quarterback's coach for a team.
Right.
I'm not even sure, but you could certainly do a lot worse. There is a shortcoming of quality coaches in the NFL. And if you can get a Super Bowl winning head coach to be your quarterback's coach, certainly that would be a win. Although I imagine if Doug wants to, Doug could probably be an offensive coordinator somewhere this offseason.
I'm going to venture to say we've seen 2 years of Jonathan Gannon refusing to bring in advisors or veteran coaches. I don't think we should hold our breath on him doing it this year. And there's some interesting people out there who could really, I think, be a help on both sides of the ball, actually. We'll talk about that at some point. But unfortunately, I think that Gannon is just, set on sticking with the guys he has. And then Laguna Pat, our SoCal captain, and esteemed member, he says, he just was asking other questions here. He was wondering why did Barton have to get injured for Jones to play? He looked solid. Yeah, what happened was Jackson Barton on Friday rolled his ankle in practice. Poor guy can't catch a break. He was playing well when he got his gig, got the chance to come in and play right tackle several weeks ago, and then he suffered an injury there, and then just one game after playing well the week before at right tackle. Once Jonah Williams got hurt, he rolls his ankle in practice and then can't play in the game. Now, fortunately, Christian Jones came in, the rookie, sixth-round pick, and he played well. Or was he a fifth round? I think it was a fifth round from Texas, and he played well enough. I mean, got to give kudos to that makeshift offensive line for racking up 396 yards, 47 points. I don't care who you're playing against, and I thought the Niners were playing hard on defense. Not particularly well at times, but they were certainly, I think, being aggressive, and so kudos to Kelvin Beachum at left tackle, Evan Brown at left guard, Bajolta Froholt, as always, a stalwart in the middle, holding everything together, and then Isaiah Adams at right guard, and then Christian Jones at right tackle. So kudos to that. And to Tony Jones Jr., who had a great touchdown at the end of the game, and that I celebrated on Twitter and here at Revenge of the Birds. I'm so glad he didn't take a dive at the 1 yard line. He deserved the touchdown. He punched it in, and it was just a great way to finish that game. And for an unsung guy who's played hard every time I've seen him play in preseason games, he's a baller. They found a dandy in him. The thing is there's just so much depth in the running back room. But here was a situation where, due to injuries, three of our top three guys out for the game. He got his chance. And when I was coaching kids at high school, I always tried to encourage the kids who didn't play much or get much action to just keep playing as hard as you can in practice. And typically, when your time comes, you will have your moment in the sun. There'll be a shining moment for you where all that work paid off, even if it was just 3 minutes of fame on a one great play. It makes it all the worthwhile, and it makes it all the worthwhile to be such a good teammate and working so hard to make your teammates better and being unselfish. So I was really happy for Tony Jones Jr. The game felt like a bit of a tease to me. I was just kind of like, but I was happy to see it. I was happy to see them try to finish out on a strong note. I'm not for tanking games at all, as you know. So what a world of difference a year makes. I think the karma of tanking games last year has played a factor in what happened this year. Because now you're totally trying to win games and putting everything into it. But at least it's in that direction now, and there's all sorts of karma things that I think are weird about the Cardinals, how they kind of put themselves in the crosshairs of the football gods frequently and often, and that's why it's pretty hard to take the Cardinals seriously. Is they bring a lot of ill will upon themselves by doing things that you typically don't want to do. Tanking games is one of them. And I live right 5 minutes from Gillette Stadium, and there's a hue and cry right now amongst Patriots fans. They blew the number one pick, and I'm trying to console them because I think they're going to get a dandy of a player at 4, and that they might have missed out on getting a draft pick or 2 out of it, but they might have to fall out of a spot like number 4 where they're going to get a premier guy. So sometimes those things are going to work out. But felt a bit like a tease, but I loved seeing Greg Dortch, let's talk about him. Have his moment in the sun for this season. He'd been hanging out, hiding in the shade all year, and he really came out and balled like crazy in the last game. So that was good to see. So let's go to question 2, Kyle.
All right, question number 2. This was the first time since Kyler's rookie season he won a post-October NFC West game. His 6-year record in post-October NFC West games improves to 2-16 now. Wow, Jesus. It was also the first time the Cardinals have won their final game since Bruce Arians won his swan song at Seattle a day before his retirement after the 2017 season. In light of Kyler Murray's post-October swoons, do you want to see the Cardinals trade him this offseason, particularly if the Raiders, Jets, or Steelers offer a first-round pick?
All right, we'll go in reverse order this time. Let's see who we got here. Since 61 says if they trade him, they better have a better plan than a middling season or two with a washed up retread failed quarterback. I agree. 2, correct. Trade him. Take it from Arizona Sun. 2-0. Jalangaland. 2, I don't see a realistic way the Cardinals can trade Murray and find a better quarterback for 2025. Therefore, I think the best thing to do would be to give him and the coaching staff another year and see if they can find some consistency, extend Kyler's strong stretches of a play over a full season. However, I do think the Cards should add an experienced veteran backup option this season to push Kyler and or serve as competition. Thank you, 2-0. Very thoughtful. All right. So now we're scrolling up to Horace, no name. No, they should not trade Kyler Murray. Murray has played well enough to stay. And a first-round pick won't do much good if there's no worthwhile quarterback candidates available in this upcoming draft. Thank you, Horace. Spartan in the Sun, 2. Unless they have a plan and a solid replacement for KM, I think it's better to stick with him. Otherwise, the 2025 season will be spent positioning the Cardinals to draft Manning. I am Lieva, Alar, or Nussmeier for the QB position. Thank you, Spartan. Ryan Mack, 7. I'd be happy to trade Kyler for a first-round pick. I'd sign a guy like Cooper Rush and start and then draft a QB. Yeah. Then ZP714, 2. That's a tough one. Problem with the first this year is there isn't any QBs I would want a chance in the first round and likely will be gone by the 6 or 7 picks. I don't think I would be interested in the Steelers first. KCP. All right. And then we've got Koala. A koala sombrero. Can't really trade Murray unless you have a replacement plan that makes sense. I don't see a team taking the cap hit, and I don't see a better alternative at this point in time. I like the idea of adding Justin Fields to play behind him, though, as that would be interesting in our offensive scheme. Great job, guys. So, Kyle, what's your answer to that question?
Well, my answer is that their best course of action is to bring back Kyler and Drew Petzing. They finished with a top 10 DVOA offense this year. Trey McBride made the Pro Bowl. He's due for what I assume will be the largest tight end contract this offseason, or an extension that will be the largest for a tight end in NFL history. Marvin Harrison, could be regarded as a disappointing first season, but then you look up and it's like 880 yards and 8 touchdowns. And it's like, oh, it wasn't actually as bad of a season as it was maybe made out to be. So I've kind of said a couple weeks ago, the best course of action is to bring back Kyler and bring back Drew Petzing. I just don't know what it's going to take to get from very good to great in terms of offense. I don't know what that next step is going to be, but that's going to be on the two of them and some of the other offensive coaches to figure out. I do really like your idea of signing a not necessarily like a high end backup, like you have to pay 10 million plus for a backup quarterback, but Cooper Rush will probably go for 8 million a year or something like that. The Cardinals have ample cap space. They don't seem inclined to go out and spend a lot this offseason because they're trying to get the young players some playing time. They're going to bring back Bilal Nichols and Justin Jones and Mac Wilson and guys they signed last offseason. So I like the idea of investing $7 or $8 million in one of these higher end backup quarterbacks like a Cooper Rush. But other than that, I think they're probably fine with the core of the offense staying intact, aka your coordinator, your quarterback, your running back, your tight end, your 2-star receivers, most of your offensive line. I know they're going to figure out the left guard thing later, but bringing back your offense as intact and possible is probably the best strategy.
Yeah, I mean, if it were me, I would make the trade ASAP. The reason why is that, and people say you don't have anyone better and Kyler gives you the best chance to win. Well, take a gander at this stat. The post-October Kyler record versus NFC West. And by the way, and I went back and counted them, like half of those games, the Cardinals were favored. So it's 2-16. And by comparison, everyone thought, spoke poorly of Colt McCoy. Not everyone, and I was really high on what he was doing as a system fit. And no one can argue that Colt McCoy is more gifted, physically in certain ways than Kyler was. But in post-October play versus NFC West, he has more wins in 4 games. He was 3-1. So, I mean, if your quarterback's not winning in your own division post-October, you got a problem. And here's my other thing is that when we have the disparity of watching a smash mouth offense with a skittish finesse quarterback is too disparate for me. I don't think it fits the profile of what you're trying to accomplish as an offense. And that's why I think if you find a quarterback who can hang tough in the pocket and make those throws over the middle that Kyler has problems with, has had struggles with, which is so key to this offense because you can exploit the linebackers all day long off play action because they have to respect the run. And, the way the offensive line gets off the ball and, it presents such a problem for opposing defenses. And this was my argument in my Petzing article yesterday, why he's a budding star, is that he's whooping ass up front. And he's, people are taking notice. Like when you play the Cardinals, you're going to feel it. Those defensive players who play us, I mean, Petzing's offense pushes them to the breaking point of their own will. I mean, they get punished by, the style of offense. And so, here's the other thing that really concerns me about Kyler's, it strikes me like with him, you can't even have a competition because he'll take it as an insult. And with him, he's got this, kind of, there's a prerequisite for dealing with Kyler, not just as coaches and teammates, but with fans, is it's unconditional love. I mean, he seems to require it from everybody. I mean, when he got his big contract, all he could thank were the fans who stayed by him, and to the exclusion of everyone else who had doubts. And I think that the McCoy situation was one that he took offense to because he knew, and I had heard this in the locker room, that there were a number of players who were hoping that Cliff would stick with McCoy as long as Colt was hot, which he was. And Colt brought a calmness and a facility to the offense that Kyler hadn't been bringing. And that sometimes is as important as anything. So, if you notice, Cliff in Washington this year, every time he's had to turn to Marcus Mariota, Mariota's delivered big time. I mean, Cliff coaches up every quarterback. But, it's almost a joke, too. Every time the Cardinals put Clayton Tune in the game this year, no matter what, they wouldn't let him throw the football. And some fans would say, yeah, because he sucks and because they'll worry. I don't think it's that at all. Because he doesn't suck. He's one of the most underrated players on our roster, in my opinion. And go watch his college tapes to find that out. 11, close to 12,000 yards, like 104 touchdowns in his career at Houston, which, by the way, is a pretty dang good program. But it struck me as the obvious one was, God forbid if he makes a great pass, now we're going to have a controversy. People will be clamoring for Clayton Tune when Kyler's in the funk kind of panic mode. So, but Kyler did a lot of great things this season. I mean, his play in that four-game winning streak was fantastic. It was the first time we've seen him since 2021, of the first 7 games of 2021, where he looked like the Kyler of that season. And that's why it felt like such a tease to watch him squander the opportunities down the stretch. And I'll get to this later, but Gannon said something to him yesterday that really sticks in my craw. And I'll get to that too. I'm trying my best to really embrace Jonathan Gannon, but every time he opens his mouth, it just bothers me. Not every time. I mean, he said yesterday, I made a lot of mistakes, and I said, wow, that's great of him to recognize that. And maybe that means, now maybe we'll see him use preseason games more wisely. Maybe he won't be canceling practices and mini camp, opportunities on the field and stuff like that. And maybe we'll see him go for it to try to win a game on 4th and 3 when he didn't do it in the Vikings game, which, so stuff like that. But, yesterday, I cannot believe what he said to Kyler Murray. I just can't. And I'll get back to it later because I want to get back to the questions. So go ahead. Question 3.
All right. Question 3. What in the world do you make of the Cardinals' minimal use of wide receiver Greg Dortch? Do you think they will re-sign the Dortch? Do you think he would want to bring his Dorcher chamber, thank you, Brett Coleman, to another team this offseason?
Yeah. Koala said, can't really trade. Excuse me. I know many on here are high on Dortch. I am not. Yes, he is small and fast, but our offense doesn't seem to have a place for small and fast. So that's another thing with Kyler that irks me. He didn't have a great year. Let him walk and wish him the best. Okay. CP14. I'm really glad you point this out, Walter. I just assumed Dortch had a bad year come to find out he only had 122 snaps over the year. He was the clear number 3 receiver in my book, and kept asking myself why he hadn't done anything with this opportunity. Well, as you pointed out, there wasn't an opportunity. If we wanted to run 2 and 3 sets, we should have drafted Bowers. Then you would have McBride, Bowers, Wilson, and Dortch, or Higgins. Thanks for opening my eyes on that one. You're welcome, ZP. 3, Ryan Mack. 7. No idea why Dortch was relegated for so much of the season. Dortch has the juice, and one of the other guys on team who gets yak yards after catch. Why didn't they run that middle wide receiver screen to him every game? It was a huge play every time. Why not run end around to him once or twice? I was Dortch. I'd want to go somewhere else after the way he was used. I agree with that, Ryan. I mean, part of the reason, let me just answer this right there, is the obsession with Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, I said when they made this pick, and I'll reiterate it again, I'm going to keep saying it just for those who had never heard it, is that I said the thing you have to worry about in drafting Marvin Harrison Jr. are the expectations that come with a big name like that and having to feed him the rock on a consistent basis. And does that take the focus somewhat away from what you do best in an offense? That's why I wanted Bowers, because he would fit in seamlessly. You don't have to change the offense. You don't have to do anything. Just have to get people open, and and it wouldn't have been this 2-year tank for Marvin hysteria. He's a generational talent, pedestaling of the guy before he ever played a snap. So, but the thing is with Dortch is, he was in this offense, he was option 6. I mean, because James Conner out of the backfield was a stronger, he got more touches than Dortch. So, and then you had Wilson, you wanted to feed Marvin as often as they did, and then you got, of course, Trey McBride, the stud of your offense, and who should be the focal point of your offense getting his. So, and other guys, Higgy Bear got some looks at times. And so, yeah, and then in the last game, too, Zay Jones emerged. So did Dortch, because Wilson was out. Zay Jones had some good catches and looked good. I think he's a guy they like and might bring back. The money's right, because I think he offers some, receiving prowess and acumen that can help the younger receivers. It was a young receiving room. We have to remember that. I mean, you have to remember. Well, one thing that sticks in my craw that I've been on Twitter about is every other Cardinals fan mock now, I'm seeing them taking another wide receiver in like round 2. I mean, time out. I mean, we still haven't drafted a space-eating defensive tackle in 2 years. We still don't have a stud edge pass rusher. I mean, and you want another wide receiver now. It's just gone to just preposterous proportions. That, and then this will dovetail into what Gannon said to Murray at the end of the season yesterday, which I'll get to at the end. But yeah, I mean, George never had a chance. And if I were him, I'd move it on. I agree with Ryan. Let's go to the next question.
Was looking up some free agent wide receivers during that question. Not a lot to work with for the Arizona Cardinals. Maybe a Tyler Boyd, but not a lot to work with in terms of slot receiver options. Number 4, did it annoy you that for much of 3 quarters, Josh Dobbs was moving the ball with relative ease?
ZP said no. No, he said no doubt this was a rough game for the defense, but I didn't expect much from the defense over the course of the year due to roster construction and injuries. Overall, the defense overperformed my expectations this year. For yes, it was annoying. Defense did not play well from Ryan Mack. From Spartan, annoyed, but since it was the same pattern we saw all season where teams move between the 20s, I wasn't surprised. Thank you, Spartan. Horace. I feel like a lot of backup level quarterbacks did well against our secondary this year. If they get some decent edge pressure next year, it will make it a lot easier on our secondary, and that should equate to more turnovers and better coverage when the QB is under pressure. And that might 2-0. I wasn't any more annoyed than I was with any of the defenses or other shakier performances this season. There were definitely other games where Rallis had the unit playing greater than the sum of its parts, but I think the defense needs another serious infusion of talent this offseason, which is something we knew already. Maybe 2-0 won't be mocking a wide receiver in round 2. Just an FYI. Thank you, 2-0, for your wisdom. Arizona Sun. The overall talent level on the defense was never there. I believe they overperformed expectations this season. I'd like to say that, but when you do play it well, there's no question the Cardinals' defense this season was at its best when they were dialing up blitzes and playing man on the back. I mean, when they weren't, and when they were playing zones, the disparity between one was aggressive and effective, the other was passive and derelict. I mean, it's just awful. The easy pitches and catches they gave up in zones. Has to go down these last 2 years the worst zone NFL defense coverage wise I've ever seen. I mean, just absolutely awful. You watch the guys just play areas. They don't pick up men. They stand like cardboard boxes. I mean, and this is what Philly fans didn't like about Gannon's defense. I mean, and I'm getting it. It was excruciating to watch because it's just such pure gift wrapping of like leaving guys open. And worst of all was, down the stretch in must-win games, you're going to leave Justin Jefferson wide open, even on 4th and 7 with the game on the line. It's just mystifying. I mean, so I can't just buy we didn't have some stud pass rushers, but we were dialing up pressure well with Rouse. I give him credit. He had some good packages. And when Buda Baker was involved in all that, it made it even more special. But dang, when on key situations, particularly on 3rd and longs, where teams would get easy conversions, it just drove me nuts. So yes and no. I mean, I know that, the defense is not getting the same, star power or enough attention, in free agency in the draft with premier talent than the offense had. And so I get that. But hopefully this year changes with all that. All right, next question.
All right, question number 5. Seems highly ironic cornerback Sean Murphy Bunting was having perhaps his best game of the season before getting ejected for the tussle he had with Jawan Jennings of the 49ers. Knowing that fighting of any kind is outlawed by Jonathan Gannon, do you appreciate Gannon's stance, or were you delighted to see Sean Murphy Bunting have it out with Jennings?
All right. So since 61, said I loved it. Jennings acted the fool, and he pulled some same crap against Thomas the previous play. SMB just finished the job and stuck up for his teammate. Well, watch out, 61, in your email. You might get a fine from Johnson. I hear you, man. I hear you. Oh, boy. So then Arizona Sun, in a game where winning technically was probably worse for the franchise depth position. I'm glad he had it out with Jennings. JJ two plays in a row was purposely trying to get himself thrown out. SMB was just the unfortunate collateral damage. He needed to make it worth it. I do say I like the fact that as SMB looked like he got the better of the altercation at the end of it. So 2-0 didn't have a strong opinion one way or the other. Um, I want to say I like Gannon's rule on that. You've got to put team first, and I remember in a key game at Seattle last year in 2023, DJ Humphries, or maybe it was at home, but I know it was against Seattle, threw a punch and got thrown out, or tried to throw a punch. It hurt us, and you got to keep your cool, and guys are going to taunt you and everything, and you just got to somehow do what's best for the team. Spartan was delighted. I want to see our defense have some edge and nastiness to it, especially against teams in the NFC West. Hopefully Jennings will have some second thoughts about doing that next year. Yeah, indeed. ZP, I'm not happy that our players were undisciplined. I am happy SMB was taken out of the game, as he has appeared to be the weak link in the quarterback area. If we keep Jalen Thompson, I would like to see him and Rabbit and Boot on the field playing three safeties at times. Maybe that's dumb, but Rabbit plays more like a DB who has the ferocity of a safety. I agree with that. Rabbit is very versatile. Yes, he is. You can play him in the slot, by the way. He played great in the slot in college. Um, all right. Well, Koala doesn't like SMB and said he shouldn't have been signed. He's a backup making fringe starter money. We drafted like 5 cornerbacks last 2 years. I'd rather see them play. Here's another thing I see Cardinal fans mocking is day 2 pick on another cornerback. I mean, we didn't even see Elijah Jones this year. He was out with an ankle injury the whole season. I mean, I'll tell you what, I'm a Boston College guy. I watched the guy play at BC. When he's right, he's a turnover machine. And Seth Cox, my editor, my captain, he wrote a great article today about the difference the Cardinals need to make next year. Biggest difference is they got to get way more turnovers than what they got this year. They got to get, they got to make vast improvements in that area. And
Walter, where do turnovers begin? Pass rush. And what do the Cardinals need? Pass rush.
That's right. So yeah. All right. Next question.
All right, question 6. It was so great to see Keitrell Clark make a stunning play on the football that was so close to turning into a pick 6. Why do you think Keitrell was played so sparingly, considering how well he played seemingly every time he got a chance this season? He posted a 71.0 PF grade, which based on these PFF grades that you posted on the article, that would be second among the Cardinals cornerbacks, only behind Garrett Williams.
Right. When Keitrell Clark is around the football, good things happen. You're talking about turnovers. It's the guy who punches off soft fumbles. And he had that spectacular interception. How he got his hand underneath the ball there. I thought it could have been a pick six. I didn't see very much contact there at all on him. That was just kind of, I don't know, hard to judge, hard from the angles of the camera to judge, but it didn't look like he was touched at all to me. But so I thought he got robbed of a pick six, which would have been awesome. But Koala says, I wouldn't mind seeing more of Keitrell Clark. That was an amazing pick. I want to see more of Max Melton than anyone, though. Still wish we drafted Kool-Aid McKinstry and never drafted T. Benson. Interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. Excellent point. ZP. I think this was a mistake by Rouse. I think they played SMB over Clark due to money and draft position. Really would have liked to have seen him play more because he got better through last year as well. Yeah. And Red Run says, Clark, nice to see him on the field. He has been in the doghouse all season. Would like to see him get more time. I'm not sure, Red Run, he's in the doghouse. I just think that they just don't have him in the rotation as high as they could. And the same thing last season. And for whatever reason, I mean, if you were one of two cornerbacks drafted in 2023 and you then go and watch them sign Sean Murphy Bunting to like $8.5 million 3-year deal, and then go ahead and draft 3 more cornerbacks in the 2024 draft, it's like looking around and going like, what kind of chance do I have now? I mean, are they giving me? They've way, I love that they're addressed the position. But you spend all that draft on cornerbacks and you haven't done much on your front seven. So that obviously I think they're going to try to make that change this off season. Hopefully they will. Ryan Mack said, I'm happy to see more from Keitrell. Should be able to find some snaps from him, especially since we should cut or bench SMB. Or SMB trains like a madman this summer and starts to, regain his recovery ability. Because, boy, he was slow coming off breaks, really slow. I thought he picked it up towards the end, which was good. But yeah, I mean, if we'll see how dedicated you want to see him be super dedicated in the off season. I think he's a player that you probably could trade now that you've given him the guaranteed money. His salary wouldn't be that prohibitive. I'll have to look it up, but I think that's a possibility as well. Spartan said, not sure. The secondary in general seemed to improve this year, so not sure what he was showing in practice in comparison to the other defensive backs. True. Of course, if you're Keitrell, you got drafted on day 3, and you got Garrett Williams day 2, you got Max Melton day 2, you got Sean Murphy Bunting, and you got Starling Thomas the 4th. Here's the other wild card. You got all these draft picks, and Starling Thomas the 5th is ahead of all of them, right? Or right neck and neck with Garrett Williams. In fact, they started games with Starling and brought Williams in to play nickel. Starling and Bunting on opposite sides, and then bring Garrett Williams. Garrett Williams is a treat. But for crying out loud, how about when games are on the line, you put him on the best receiver on the other team, like an Adam Thielen? You know, how in Carolina they left Thielen alone too, a couple weeks after leaving Justin Jefferson wide open. It's just mind-boggling. All right, next question.
Real quick before we move on, just to answer your question, Murphy Bunting carries a $9.7 million cap hit next year. 9.9 actually, $9.9 million cap hit. If they trade him pre-June 1st, they only have $4 million in dead cap. If they designate him post June 1st, it's you split it $2 million each year. So they would save about somewhere between 5 to 7 million on the cap if they were to trade him. Obviously, they might have to eat some of his salary in a deal, but
Right.
they would save money against the cap just by trading him, regardless of when they did it this offseason.
What's his two? What's his 2025 base salary?
We've got the numbers up here on the screen. 7.6.
That's the base.
Base salary, 7.6 million, 2 million signing bonus adds up to a cap hit of about, along with workout bonus, adds up to a cap hit of about 9.9 million. And then if they cut him, it's 8.5 dead cap. If they trade him, it's either 4 million or 2 million split up over 2 years.
Well, then you're right. If they trade him, they'll have to take part of the salary because I don't think anyone's going to make a trade and pick up the 7 million.
Yes, which again, that's the choice they got to make in saving if they do make a trade. And do they value a possible draft pick versus whatever money they would choose to eat? But one way or another, they save money on a trade. It just depends how much that base salary they pick up.
Right.
Number 7, Lou Anarumo, one of Walter's favorites. After a couple rough seasons in Cincinnati, was fired on, I believe that was Monday. No NFL defensive coordinator has had the type of success he's had in thwarting the likes of Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. Do you think it would be wise for the Cardinals to hire Lou as a defensive advisor? Do you think that Jonathan Gannon will happen to add any advisors for the 2025 season?
I'm going to just quickly answer that one. Yes, it would be wise. No, it'll never happen. So, and probably Lou, with the 7 coaching jobs open, I hope he gets a defensive coordinator job. When they traded the likes of Jesse Bates, they made some dubious, decisions on defense over there in Cincinnati, unfortunately. But I'll tell you what, no one schemed Mahomes, but as in the Mahomes era, Lou Anarumo has been the thorn in Mahomes' paw. I mean, lion paw. I mean, Anarumo has beaten him 3 times and brilliant schemes. Plus Josh Allen, he beat in Buffalo. I mean, in the playoffs. So I mean, this guy can scheme up, and whether he can get the execution or whether has the personnel to get it done. What I love about him is he really knows how to scheme game plan. So yeah, I mean, but I'm hoping for him that he'll land on his feet.
The move reminds me a lot of when Baltimore had to move on from their offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator after just a whole bunch of years. It was Greg Roman, it was Wink Martindale, and it wasn't that they were playing bad. They just were playing worse than before, and I think expectation got the better of them in that situation. And like you said, Cincinnati's defensive personnel is not as good as it was 3 years ago when all the Logan Wilsons and Jermaine Pratts and Jesse Bateses were all still A, on rookie contracts, or B, all playing together. The Bengals have not drafted well on that side of the ball recently.
Well, the Bengals, Sweet Lou Anarumo, certainly got the best out of Trey Hendrickson.
Mm-hmm.
Led the league in sacks. And so I'll take a package deal. Lou is defensive advisor, and he brings Hendrickson with him. How about that one?
If he brings
Woo!
Hendrickson with him, but
Woo!
I would settle for Logan Wilson. I'll take. I don't have to have Trey Hendrickson. I'll settle for Logan Wilson or that young corner. Was it Cam Taylor-Britt has been a good draft pick for them, but I'm sure they'll want to
Are
re-sign
they
him this
free
offseason.
agents? Are they free agents?
No, but Taylor-Britt's at that point where it's like he's done with year 3, and they have to decide whether or not they're going to extend him on a second contract.
All right. Okay. So, now with the last question, go ahead, read the last question. You don't have to read all the PFF grades, but you can just show the PFF grades to
Yes.
the game.
All right. So here are the PFF grades, the Cardinals who graded above 70. I'm going to leave those up on the screen while we're answering. What are your impressions of these PFF grades? Which ones mean the most and or the least to you? And again, people can see them on YouTube or on the Spotify video
Yeah.
podcast. We've got the list up here.
Right. So here are some of the responses that we got from our members. So so Laguna Pat, he wasn't just talking about one of the things that he said that things that he said. I just wanted to, he didn't answer the questions directly, but um, some of the thoughts he had was, can we find a middle linebacker with a nose for the wall like Buddha? Not White. Looks like White's indicating he's moving on in free agency, which I find fascinating. Seeing as I know how close he is with Nick Rallis and Jonathan Gannon, so it looks like he's been told that they're going to get younger at the position or do something. They have a different plan in mind. And interesting, Howard Balzer wrote today that not giving White a substantive offer would be averse to Gannon's philosophies of who he wants as players. I found that bizarre. I mean, on the one hand, I understand, White came in, Gannon from day one appointed him a captain. And as a leader, I think, an organizer, guy who got the defense called and stuff, he was fine. And he's a fiery guy, and you got to like him, the person. But on the field, I mean, if you want to run zones, you can't run a zone with a guy. It's unfortunately. I mean, I don't know what happened to his Philly days where he was covering better, but he had the worst coverage grade on the entire roster, and he's your Mike and captain who doesn't come off the field. And I think they started subbing in for him with after a while with Owen Popo to get his speed out there and coverage and stuff. So it's a great question, Pat. Because you like the guy, but if you really want to get better, he's not a Mike. He's just not. I've said it from day one since he arrived. He's a will at best, and at this point in his career, maybe not a starter. Maybe some guy who can contribute on, in a different way. But I think he still commands perhaps starters money. He might get picked up by somebody like Jordan Hicks did. So we'll see. I mean, there's a lot to like about him as a leader. And he did a better job defending the run this year than he did the year before. A little more consistent down the stretch. But you just wonder, does he bring the kind of run stuffing physicality and stamina that you'd want out of a 3-down Mike? and with it, the coverage skills. So there was enough questions there that I think it makes sense to try to get younger and faster and stronger at the position. But kudos to White for giving it all he had. Um, yeah. And then one thing else that Pat said that I found interesting was, and talked about the tremendous lack of speed we have on offense. Tyreek Hill wants out of Miami. He says, "Go get him." Kyle, your reaction to Tyreek?
No, thank you. I would not want to invite that into my locker room. I know he's a very good player and all that stuff. He's just, we talk about enigmas in sports all the time, and some deserve, some not for different reasons. But I think Tyreek Hill being a bit of an enigma, especially at this stage of his career, is certainly true at this point. And again, it doesn't. What is the point of having Tyreek Hill and Marvin Harrison Jr. in an offense that they don't throw the ball down the field? That seems to be counterintuitive. And given what I assume they would have to give up to make it happen, yeah. There's probably a team out there for Tyreek Hill at this point. It's not the
Uh,
Cardinals, but I'm sure there's a team out there still for Tyreek Hill, especially all the teams that are running that zone read
yeah,
offense that Mike McDaniel does. I'm sure some like the Packers maybe the Packers say we'll try our hand at Tyreek Hill. Maybe I don't know, someone like Jacksonville says with a new coach and trying to make Trevor Lawrence work, we'll take a stab at him. But I don't. No, thank you. No, thank you. I don't want to invite that into my locker room.
right. And name me one small receiver. We were just talking about Dortch getting no love in the offense. Name me one small receiver, speed receiver Kyler's had where he's clicked with. Now you could say Christian Kirk, but Kirk was not used as a traditional slot. Um, he had a very limited tree route that he was willing to run, and he did pretty well with that. But that's the best you could say. But it was a compromised arrangement because you weren't seeing Christian Kirk getting the ball over the middle at all. So he was up the seams or on deep crossers or on fade routes or wheel routes, things like that, deep outs, but not over the middle. Yeah, I'm in the same boat just because of that, but also the salary he would command. It was going to be. Uh, I don't want to see our big cap space get eaten up by one player that much, unless it's an absolute defensive juggernaut stud. That would
And
make
to that point, there's going to be a lot. If the Cardinals feel like they really need to make an upgrade at slot receiver, and that is essential, there are a lot of players who
yeah,
will be available for day three picks. Not necessarily in the draft, but flipping a day three pick for a wide. I think there's been like 30 something wide receivers drafted in the last two draft classes. Not
right.
all of them are getting playing time. Not all of them are finding their space in the league. I know you were big on Jalen Polk last year in the draft for the Cardinals. He seems really unhappy in New England.
Right.
You could probably get him for a sixth round pick. It's just there are other options out there, and the Cardinals don't have to make
I
this significant wide receiver upgrade.
I agree. And a guy I like in free agency you'll hear more of from me is Noah Brown of Washington. He's a Ohio State kid who can play inside outside. He's not a true burner either, but he's a baller and he's got great catch radius. I think he fits the mode. And I think, I mean, bringing maybe Zay Jones back at a reasonable deal, he can play inside outside as well. So yes, I don't see it's a priority. I expect big improvements from Marvin Harrison Jr. and from Michael Wilson. Well, I think everyone's ignoring. I love Michael Wilson, and I think he's dynamic in a number of ways, and I think you could play him in the slot too. So, but as for the PFF grades, since 61 nailed it for me, he said the PFF grades for the offensive line are the most important. And the thing that concerns him are the lack of DBs and defensive linemen. Perfectly said from since 61. That was just my reaction to is that we've never seen offensive line score grades like this in unison, plus running back grades. I mean, Autry Denson's doing a spectacular job as running backs coach. And you got to love what Petzing and Ben Steele, the tight end coach, have been doing with the tight ends. So only one tight end showed up, but we got 4 running backs up there, and obviously they were doing their job. Kudos to you. It goes hand in hand when you're a run-heavy offense and your offensive line is whooping up front, and your backs are second in the league at 5.4 this year, only behind Baltimore. And that was in my Gannon is, Petzing is special is a star article yesterday. Is that you look at if you said to me, and Kyle, I know will corroborate this. If you said to Kyle and me on Red Rain 2 years ago that the new regime coming in within 2 years would lead every major rushing category in the NFC West, I would have said, you're out of your freaking mind.
The next question I would have asked is Christian McCaffrey hurt? And then
Yeah,
after
he
that,
was.
I
Well,
would
he
have said,
was this past year, but he wasn't the year before. But that's true.
yeah.
But
My
still, for
next
a while
question would
there,
have been, is Christian McCaffrey hurt? And then after that, it would have
yeah,
been, I cannot believe you.
right. But then early in the season, his replacement was first in the league in yards, Morgan, right? So, I mean, and that the way they emphasize it with a Shanahan offense, with a McVay offense, and now, interestingly, the Seahawks fired Ryan Grubb, even though they were the 5th highest, passing offense yards wise in the NFL, and they had 10 wins because he wants a offensive running machine juggernaut, and which Grubb that's not his forte. So, and he saw that in Baltimore the 2 years he was there with them leading the league in rushing. And he certainly saw it at Michigan with Harbaugh when he was the defensive coordinator there. So and kudos to him to know what his vision is. It seems kind of weird that they hired Grubb in the first place if that's what his vision was. Although maybe he thought Grubb could adapt to the NFL coming back from college the way Todd Monken has done running wise with the Ravens. I don't know, but their net running game didn't get really off track. I mean, Kenneth Walker Jr. was off and on hurt. And Charbonnet did a number on us. Frickin' A. But they want more. They have a vision, and teams around the league. I mean, this is why Petzing is pretty special. Teams around the league look at this and go, like, they not only beat you, they beat you up, and they impose their will on you till they want to make you break. So, and they're relentless. And this is why Petzing's going to get continued attention, because it's pretty special. Everyone, yards per carry, every let me in fact get it straight for all of you. I have the note here. This is unbelievable to me. When I looked it up, I was pinching myself and going like, because I thought they were good. Yards, total yards, 2,451. 7th in NFL, number 1 in NFC West. Yards per carry, 5.3. Number 2 in NFL behind Baltimore, number 1 in NFC West. TDs, 18. Number 8 in the NFL, number 1 in NFC West. 20 plus yards, 17 of them, number 6 in the NFL, number 1 in the NFC West. 40 plus yards, 7 of them, number one in the NFL, number one in NFC West. How about that stat? Thank you, Amari DiMercado and James Conner. Rushing first downs. They had 136, which is eighth in the NFL and number one in the NFC West. Cha-ching. Kudos. And here was my argument. If the offense is thriving for 9 of the starters, but all you do is focus on Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr., I think it's a huge mistake to think that, you want to blame this on the coordinator or whatever struggles they have. And, that's why I'll get to the point I was trying to make at the beginning that I was saving. It's just unbelievable. So yesterday, I come into the day thinking, and I'm still this mode. I want to be as positive as I can towards the main three that I find kind of not comfortable and confident in is Fort. I like a lot of the things he does. Some of the things he does just mystify me. Gannon. I was an all-time high in the winning streak, and I was like saying, man, this is working. This is working. But then, all kinds of things fell apart and decisions he made now. So yesterday I go in and I'm like, I want to find more things I really like about Gannon. So he comes out and says, I made a lot of mistakes this year. I'm like, that is awesome. I'm like, it takes a real man to be able to say that. And he's been saying it's all on me. It's all on me. I don't like that part because it's not all on the head coach. It's, you set the tone, but there's a lot of moving parts to this. But it also is on you when you make decisions like playing a prevent defense with a game on the line. That is on you, and not going for it to try to win the game down in the red zone on a 4th and 3. You throw that into the end zone or you run it into the end zone, you win the game because there's no time left for the Vikings to come back and win. Those kind of decisions that maybe he learns from, and next year he does differently. Fine. But dang, no sooner I hear that and I'm all excited, he tells us about his exit interview with Kyler Murray. And I'm reading this, I'm listening to it, and I'm reading it, the text of it, and I'm just going like, you cannot freaking be serious. Because here's how it went. He goes, so I'm talking to Kyler, and and I asked him, what are the things that the best quarterbacks in the league have that you are doing that you're not? And he said, Kyler starts, giving me notes, about what certain guys are doing, and why they're successful and this and that. And he's talking about examples, and again says, no, I'll stop you right there. Which, first of all, I'm like, if Kyler has thoughtful answers, I think you'd want to listen. Don't stop him right there. Let him talk. Let him talk it through. Get inside his head as to why he is not performing, particularly down the stretch in seasons, the way the top level quarterbacks do. Well, what does Gannon say to stop him right there is all those other guys are surrounded by good teams. Are you freaking kidding me? I mean, you were 6-4 in the NFC West. The 49ers were on collapse. The Rams at that point were on life support. The Seahawks were the only guys really in the way, and they were floundering at that time in the season. And now you're going to tell your quarterback because you were surrounded by a bad team or not a good team? I mean, and then the thing about this that really sticks in my craw is It feeds Kyler's own narrative, false narrative, that all he's ever had to be is Superman and run around and make plays because he's not been surrounded by guys who can carry the team the way he can, or not enough talent, which is the biggest crock. So it's like feeding Kyler's own excuses. Um, we weren't a bad team. We're 6-4. Plus, we had a chance to be a better team at the trading deadline. We got one player, and he did make some difference. But what if we got two or three? I mean, because the Rams did that a few years ago when we had the lead, and the two or three guys they got carried them to a Super Bowl championship or helped carry him. I mean, there are ways to improve your team. But how can you say this to Kyler and then be bragging about it to the media? How do you think, if you're the team, maybe the team goes, well, maybe that's why he didn't go for it on 4th and 3, because he has no confidence in our offense. So we don't have the good enough team to do that. Maybe that's why he called a prevent defense with a game on the line in Minnesota, because he didn't have confidence we could cover, Justin Jefferson, even if we double team him. Things like that. I mean, you got an exit message for your quarterback after what he did early in the season, which was help. That's what good quarterbacks do, is they make everyone better. But struggling quarterbacks tear everything down. And we saw both this year. We saw it early with Kyler making everything better and then making everything worse. I mean, there's no way to sugarcoat that. And when will Kyler, somebody's got to give him some tough love. And so somebody's got to coach him up right on this stuff, because his career now is teetering in the balance. I mean, when you got, it's a stigma now that post-October, Kyler goes into a shell. He's not the same player. It's like he's back at Allen High School where the season will be over by then. And he's, played his best football. I mean, something's got to change with that. But telling him it's because your team isn't as good enough. Oh, my God. Please help me with this. I mean, that kind of psychology is just inane to me. And I think it just does not give me confidence that if this is your way of coaching Kyler up, is like enabling him to think, he's got to do it all himself. It's just, I just cited you those rushing statistics. Gannon has doubled down and said he thinks Petzing's offense is perfect for Kyler. We know there are ways that Kyler limits that offense. So him saying that is in error. It's not perfect. All right. Now, what he probably means is we're giving Kyler plenty of help in the running game, which they're doing. But then Kyler's got to do his part. And in the games where he does his part, he's been great. But the psychology of that is like saying, well, listen, man, we're going to get the team better around you. They've been doing it from the frickin' get-go. They've been catering to his wants and needs from the start. It should have been Will Anderson Jr. Hands down, in the first draft, it would have been a draft coup and would have set a whole different tone. So we do all this up and down trading and bypass the best, pass rusher in the draft, a bona fide stud from Alabama in a program from studs, a stud, because we want to get Kyler a tackle when 3 of his returning tackles came back from seasons where they graded in the 70s and they're still on the roster. It's just bullshit that it happened that way. All right. And then you had, this year with Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, he wasn't the best player for our offense. He just wasn't. I mean, that's, and now it took away from, and I guarantee you this, I guarantee it, he would not have been Drew Petzing's first choice. It would have been Joe Alt or it would have been Brock Bowers, but it would not have been Marvin Harrison Jr. Now, hopefully, like Paris Johnson Jr. looks like a great developing talent. So does Marvin Harris, but they got to somehow make it all work, and and somehow get. And then people are saying, even in the media, that for years to come, Marvin Harrison Jr. should be the focus of the Cardinals' offense. No, 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 no. There's a guy named Trey McBride who's a perfect fit in this offense. Perfect for what you want. Ideal. And they brought it out of him. Until they arrived, Trey McBride was, a hopeful. In the last 2 years, they have turned him as the style of offense and the way they run it and the way they coach it that has turned him into a superstar at the position. And he's about to get paid, which he deserves, and a long-term deal, 4 or 5 years, at probably the highest a tight end's going to be paid, at least this next year, when he gets it. Others will go beyond that and during the length a contract more than likely, but he's right up there and deserves it. So, you know, I just don't get this is how the way you coach Kyler Murray. I don't think it's going to work. I just don't. I think he needs some tough love and say, we were right there in the Seattle game, the first one, when, you force the issue, try to lob it incorrectly on the sideline right to Kobe Bryant, who takes it to the house. And now suddenly a 3-point game becomes a 10-point game and you're in the hole. I mean, decisions like this and, made under, like they're like unforced errors. It was an unforced error. Many other things could happen, and they just kept compounding themselves during that stretch. Now, so you got to get somebody realistic with Kyler to say, like, these are the things you got to correct, dude. I mean, you say this thing's slowing down for you. Well, then you got to play like it, because if it's slowed down for you, you don't, over panic and throw those kind of throws. You just don't. So, that's where, like I said, I want to embrace Jonathan Gannon. There are things about him that I do like. I like his enthusiasm. Um, to a certain extent, I understand, that, his philosophy of football, although it's not strictly in line with mine. So I just want to embrace him. But when he says things like that and brags about it, it just is mystifying to me. Just moments after saying I've made a lot of mistakes. Um, first of all, I think an exit interview with a quarterback should be between quarterback and head coach. I don't think you air that publicly. But the message there is so misleading. And if I were a member of the team and saw that, remember, this is Kyler who said, all year long, we had to hear this from every broadcasting crew was, I feel so much better now because I don't have to be the hero. I don't have to be Superman and have to run around and carry the team on my back to win and do superhuman things to win. I mean, look at the lineups he's played with. Look at the quality of receivers the Cardinals have given him. I mean, look at all the effort, and he's had the benefit of playing with James Conner for 3 years and 4 years now. I mean, the dude's been given so much, and yet he still thinks he was the only player capable of winning games for the Cardinals. I mean, here's the proof. Post-October, Kyler versus NFC West, 2-16. Post-October versus NFC West for the Cardinals, Colt McCoy, 3-1. Did Colt McCoy have to, like play Superman to help the Cardinals win? No. He had to run the offense the way it's designed, which he did. And in grand fashion. All three of those wins on the road at San Francisco, at Seattle, at LA Rams, with makeshift offensive lines in all three cases, like 2 or 3 starters missing. In the Rams game, it was 4 starters missing. He ran a smooth operation. He was like a point guard. And it was just a calming efficiency. So, that's proof unto itself that, you didn't have to be a Superman to run Cliff's offense. And if, like I said earlier, if you notice this year, every time Marcus Mariota has had to come in for this sensational rookie who plays with such poise and such precision and such, with such joy, the disparity is just so alarming, so amazingly different. Marcus Mariota, was fantastic. I mean, so it's this notion that and here's what I would say to him: the common denominator for me is that those quarterbacks make everyone better. That's a better answer. What quarterbacks do for a football team is they set the tone. If the quarterback's playing confidently, and there's there's a belief in the quarterback, that permeates the entire football team. If the quarterback's playing the system correctly and moving the football and generating confidence, that affects the entire football team. It affects defenses too, because when they do that, they're not free and out every time and running back out on the field. So, oh, that one was a tough one for me. In the comments, please tell me your take on that. Maybe it's different than mine, but I thought that was unfortunate. Kyle, parting shots.
Well, I think that we're in a interesting position here because, like you kind of outlined, Trey McBride is going to get this large contract extension, and by proxy, Trey McBride is going to be the focal point of this offense. And as the season went along, they kind of moved in that direction. So I don't know. I don't know exactly where I sit on the whole Jonathan Gannon comments conversation that you just had, but it's a really interesting position the Cardinals find themselves in going forward because, like I've been saying, the offense is very good. I don't know what it's going to take for them to get to great, but I think preaching continuity is probably the best case going forward because next year is the make or break season. That part is clear. For Gannon, for members of the coaching staff, this is the make or break season. And like you outlined in your story, Drew Petzing's out here interviewing for head coaching jobs with other teams. They recognize he's a budding star. They recognize what he's doing on the offensive side is innovative. And I think they're going to have that same core together, unless for some reason Petzing gets an offer from another coach, although I don't know who that coach would be that would make him leave Arizona or leave his current contract to go pursue another job. But I think that the Cardinals are preaching continuity at this point. They had a chance to contend this year, and it was a weird way to get there. But if you said 8-9 at the start of the season, I think a lot of Cardinals fans would have taken it. If you had told them 8-9, the strides they made on defense, the offense being top 10 in a lot of statistics, I think a lot of Cardinals fans would have taken it. But like you said, they were in first place in November. They were playing meaningful football in December, and those losses to the Seahawks are the reasons why the Arizona Cardinals didn't make the playoffs this year. They had a chance to make the playoffs. And I know the Rams have been really good ever since people got healthy, but they were number one in the division. They had a chance to win meaningful football. It stinks that they aren't quite there yet, but you certainly feel more optimistic going into this offseason than last offseason. That certainly is the case.
Yeah. Yeah, those Seahawks games were so dispiriting. It's not just that they lost, it's how they lost and how they played. And what was remarkable to me was after the second one, Gannon gave the team the day off. This is 3 weeks after a bye week, and then comes in with his assistants and tells the media that they had questions about the team's effort. Wow. I mean, and yeah, I mean, it didn't look good. So they're, it's on me, but well, in that case, it was the player's effort. Um, you know, I thought that was on both cases canceling practice, which Gannon just thinks doing less is more. That's why I don't think he'll ever be a consistent winner in the NFL if that's his approach. Um, I hope that's one of the things he's said I've made a lot of mistakes and in retrospect won't do again. But I don't know if he even recognizes that. But um, that was, I think, that what happened in Minnesota for a couple weeks there, he kind of lost the team, and team wasn't playing. I think the team. He said before the second Seahawks game, all week long, the players were pissed. Well, I think they were pissed at their own coaches because they had were in a great position to win that game in the Minnesota, and the coaching decisions on the stretch weren't what you would define as putting your players in the best situation to succeed. Put it that way, and that was heartbreaking to lose that game by one. And then travel home and get ready for the Seahawks. Were they pissed off at themselves? I don't think so. They played a good game. I think they were pissed off that they they weren't put in a position to make the plays to win that game in the fourth quarter. A game that by then they had deserved the right to win. So, to Gannon's credit, the players didn't give up and came back strong at the end in meaningless games. The loss in Carolina was just unthinkable, and the way they played there too. So, it was a learning experience for them and for the players. And I just hope that, this is an off season that will generate a lot of positive buzz for the Cardinals. And I'm concerned with all these defensive-minded head coaches. They're going to gobble up the best defensive free agents. We've been left out in the cold the last 2 years on defensive free agents. It could happen again, so it might be relying very heavily on getting the right defensive players drafted. But I'm hoping for better than that. We do have the cap space. We might have to overpay for some people. So, but in the weeks ahead, Kyle and I will talk about free agents. We'll talk about draft picks. We'll do some mocks. Of course, you'll can't wait for Kyle's annual Cardinals mock or off-season.
Off-season plan. We're making it a new tradition.
Yeah, his forecast, which was so fun last year. We got extra viewers on that one, so on Red Rain. So, but anyway, enjoy the playoffs, gang. Sorry we're not in them, but boy, how about if they were in the Ram spot, getting the Vikings at home? That's going to be a challenge. But not impossible. If you're at home, and get some mojo going, you have a good chance. But that Vikings team's awfully good, and they're very well coached. So, but yeah, enjoy these playoffs, and thanks for your support, and would love to hear your questions and comments at Revenge of the Birds in the article, posting the links, and or at YouTube, right in the comments section there. Some people have been making some really good comments and interesting comments. So please, I'll try to respond to any that I see. And in the interim, may the red rain shower down on you into a red, red sea. Red rain.